The following program is presented with closed captioning available. This is a service of Maricopa College's television, Channel 115.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Governing Board meeting of March 26, 2013, and welcome everyone here. We have a full house, and I want to alert people, especially if people come in. We have an overflow room on the first floor, and if you get off the elevator and go east, you take the first hallway to the right, and there will be an overflow room that would allow you to participate in the meeting. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Miranda, will you lead us?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have one substitute tonight. We're pleased to have Mary Connor with us to represent the foundation. Welcome, Mary. The next item on the agenda is the student life reports, and we have Ms. Jessie Palacio from Gateway Community College.
Good evening, and thank you, President Burke, Governing Board members, Chancellor Glasper, CEC, and distinguished guests. My name is Diana Zlatichanin, and I'm an international student on a student visa admitted to Gateway Community College. As a student at Gateway, I had the honor to serve as Phi Theta Kappa International Honor Society President, World Explorers Director for Public Relations, and first student from Gateway Community College, and first person, international person on the Fiesta Bowl Corps for 2012-2013. And tonight, I will be presenting on the leadership development. At Gateway Community College, we offer many leadership opportunities. In the fall, each student spent 3 days in Sedona, where we learned to work as a team and an action planning method to put on events and programs. Our students attended the MCCD 3-day student life and the leadership retreat at Pine Summit Camp in Prescott. The theme was 2012, You Decide, which reminded us of the importance of serving through civic engagement. In November, 10 students, leaders attended the American Student Government Association conference in Los Angeles, California. We left the conference taking away specific ideas and best practices to improve our council. While in Los Angeles, we took the opportunity to go to the Museum of Tolerance. The museum challenges us to examine the many forms of prejudice and discrimination we have today in the world. This year, the leadership will be held from May 15th through 20th at the ASU West Campus. Leadership is a 6-day leadership experience offered to students across the United States. 7 students from Gateway will participate in team building and individual character building activities that will focus on leading with integrity. Next is a presentation about Gateway Community College campus events and activities.
Hi, my name is Crystalyn Ramos, and I am the Chair of Student Activities Management. GWCC offers several events and activities where students can volunteer and get involved in program planning and club events. SAM Council hosts several activities on campus and off campus. On Thanksgiving Day, Channel 12 recognized us student leaders for volunteering from 4 a.m. to noon. We sponsor student forums, the GWCC Holiday Buffet, and collaborated with campus committees to put on events such as Still Black at Yale, where 2 African-American women came and talked about their experience at Yale. Tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., we will host our spring event, GWCC's annual Geckoland Carnival. Every year, Gateway students and staff gather on campus for fun, food, entertainment, and good company. The carnival is free and open to the public, and Gateway invites you to put on your shades and join us for fun in the sun.
Too bright.
Another upcoming event hosted by GWCC's International Education Committee and Student Life is Genocide Awareness. Lives Remembered, the traveling exhibit from the Holocaust Museum of Houston. The haunting images from the Polish community will be displayed in the Copper Room at GWCC on April 1st to the 15th. Next, we have Aida with clubs and organizations.
Hello, my name is Aida Arias, and I am Secretary of SAM Council. There are a broad range of student clubs that explore a variety of activities and interests that promote social, cultural, and academic awareness. College is about exploration, finding your passions, and having fun. In September, Gateway held a club expo where students got a chance to gather information about the clubs on campus and to decide which ones were right for them. This year, GWCC clubs have been involved in many activities, such as Radiology Club is doing X-rays Don't Hurt with the Children's Learning Center, where they will help children overcome their fears of X-rays. Club Insight did Helping Hands with St. Vincent de Paul. Creative Writing Club wrote letters to the armed forces overseas for Veterans Day. World Explorers Club is helping refugee families to navigate through a life into the U.S. Thank you for your time and for giving us the opportunity to share with you the many activities going on at Gateway Community College. We hope to see you at our annual Geckoland event tomorrow.
Thank you. It's encouraging to hear some examples of what the students are doing, and we appreciate your being here to share with us. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is Emeritus Awards and Recognitions. We'll begin with Dr. Linda Lujan of Chandler Gilbert Community College.
May I approach the podium?
Yes, please.
And I'd like to invite Pam Davenport and Dr. Bill Guerrero to join me here. Mr. President, board members, CEC members, honored guests, particularly honored Chandler Gilbert Community College guests, it is my great pleasure to recommend Pam Davenport for emeritus status. Pam Davenport has served with distinction as one of Chandler Gilbert's founding faculty members. Since her arrival at CGCC in 1987 as English faculty, Pam expanded her involvement to include learning communities, faculty professional development, student organizations, as well as serving several terms as chair of the Languages and Humanities Division. Pam co-founded a distinctive part of Chandler Gilbert's faculty development program called the Network of Excellence, a professional learning community that provides new and continuing residential faculty the opportunity to learn about the college and to improve the quality of learning and teaching. For many years, Pam was faculty liaison to Chandler Gilbert's Native American student organization, Eagle Feather. Pam has facilitated many writing workshops for faculty and instituted Maricopa's Writing Reflection and Renewal Project. In 2006, Pam co-founded the Reflection, Renewal, and Role Initiative at Chandler Gilbert, which supports integrity, respect, inclusion, communication, and cooperation, and helps employees incorporate these principles to achieve a renewed sense of vocation in the day-to-day workplace. Under Pam's leadership, R3 continues to flourish and grow. It was our great loss to see Pam move on to the next chapter of her life, and it is my greatest honor to recommend her.
Thank
thank you very much for this honor. Thank you, President Burke, and to the board, and Chancellor and Vice Chancellor, and everybody here. I would like to just say very briefly what an honor and a joy it has been to serve 24 years, to serve our students in this district. And if I could be so bold, to encourage the board and everyone involved in Maricopa to hold on to one of the values that has meant so much to me in my time here. Recently, I saw a friend and colleague who had to leave Maricopa and go to a college in a different state, and it was a great loss for us to lose her. And she told me the sad news that people were not nice to each other at the college where she was, and I was so shocked and disappointed to hear that. And it was one of those moments where I realized I don't experience that. I don't experience that in Maricopa, and I've been so blessed to be here. And it started actually before I even became an employee, when somebody told me to go see somebody at a different college, and this person would give me some advice so that I wouldn't make horrible mistakes when I prepared my application. And then I started at Chandler Gilbert, and we were part of Mesa. And I've already told you this, Doyle, Burke, but I appreciated so much all the help that you and others gave to me and to others at Chandler Gilbert. And every moment of my life in this district has been about serving students and being passionate about that work. And I have appreciated the district office and, of course, my college, my beautiful, beautiful, wonderful Chandler Gilbert College. And I just want to reiterate the work of what we do with Reflection, Renewal, and Roll. And as President Lujan said, it's all about bringing our whole selves to our work and about our integrity and bringing, as Parker Palmer says, the soul along with the role. And I think this district is all about that. And I just hope that everybody remembers that it doesn't happen accidentally, and keep up that wonderful work. And thank you very much for this distinction. And it's a great honor.
Thank you. The next is Dr. Shouan Pan of Mesa Community College.
Yes, President Doyle, Board of Members, Chancellor Glassford, CEC, colleagues, and guests. The faculty member that we recommend for similar honor roll won't be able to join us tonight, but I do have at the request of Board Member Dennis Saar, we have a special in the front row, a group of students. These are MCC Thunderbird women's basketball team with the coaches, Corey Stevens, Sam Stevens, Corey Stevenson, Sam Stevens, and Nelson over there, the three coaches. They had a fantastic year. They become the Division II national runner-up, did fantastic work. Let me invite our AD, Athletic Director John Mohan, to tell us a little bit about this wonderful team.
Thank you. I want to start by saying one of the things that I'm most proud of is that what we try to do at Mesa Community College is create programs. And I want to give you a little background on Coach Corey Stevenson, Coach Ben Nelson, and Coach Stam Stevens on what they've done with the Mesa Community College Athletic Women's Basketball Program. Last year they were the ACC-AC region champions. They were recognized on 2 national academic All-American teams, last year's team. They went to the national tournament and placed 5th. They also won the Sportsmanship Award as being the best sportsmanship. And what I try to tell people is it's not like they went to Chandler, Arizona. They went to Peoria, Illinois, and they were recognized by their peers and administrators and fans in the stands as the sportsmanship team of the tournament. And also, Coach Stevenson was the ACC-AC Coach of the Year last year. Now this year, they went on to defend their championship in the ACC-AC, rebuilt the team. I believe we had 4 freshman starters. We lost 2 student athletes last year on Division I scholarships, one to the University of Arizona and one to the San Diego State University, Long Beach State University. So they rebuilt the team and had some solid returners come back as well. And they marched their way once again to the region championship. Then they went on to the national tournament, and we were so close. We were so close. They battled. They won their first 3 games. They went into the national championship game, and it came down to the wire. And unfortunately, we didn't come out on top, but I will tell you that this is the first time in about 30 years that Mesa Community College has experienced going for a national championship, and it was our women's basketball program. Coach Stevenson is very proud of the fact that this program in the fall, had a 3.5 team GPA going into the spring this year. We have 2 girls that have perfect 4.0s in the fall. And the last highlight, if I could, at the national tournament, we had 3 all-tournament players, and then as a conference, we had 3 all-conference players. So this team is an example of how to build a program. This is head coach Corey Stevenson, assistant coach Sam Stevens, and assistant coach Ben Nelson. And these are our Lady Thunderbirds right here. So thank you.
Ladies, could you stand up and be recognized, please? Yeah. Sure. Stand up.
Well, I'll take the blame from taking away from your studies tonight. But I want to congratulate you as well. I kind of went through the same thing. They took, we played a national championship many years ago. Made it to the national championship after being ranked #1 all year long, and somebody put a cover over the basket in the second half, just as they did in Peoria. So I congratulate you and Coach Stevenson for a great year. Those of you that haven't seen our athletics here in the district need to take the opportunity to do so. It's great entertainment, great group of kids. Thank you. And if you need to go home and study now, we'll understand.
Yes.
We appreciate your... Yes.
I see Dr. Avila from MCC honoree has it right.
All right.
So may I approach the podium, please?
Yes, you may. Mm-hmm.
It is my honor, pleasure to recommend to you for your consideration Dr. Alex Avila, who has been with Mesa Community College, veteran faculty, done a lot of great work, served the country in different capacity in military, come to us. It's a faculty member who is dedicated to student learning, student success, served the college in many capacities. He's decided to move on to also the next chapter of life. We'll miss his leadership at Mesa Community College, and it's wonderful to have him join us. So, like for your consideration, let me invite Dr. Vila to say a few words.
Thank you. Board members, thank you for the consideration. President Burke, it's been a long time. We used to work together at MCC. See a lot of familiar faces out here. It's a long 22 years with intermittent leaves of absence, if you will. But it was a pleasure working with MCC. The students were a challenge, and I imagine I was more of a challenge to them, but that's part of the way things go, if you will. I just recently came back from Ohio from further training and hoping to further my career later on. And oddly enough, I ended up teaching again, so go figure. Even though I didn't want to, but that's the way it worked out. Just one of those situations. But my time at Maricopa was rewarding. It was one of the best 20 years of my life. It gave me the opportunity to learn and grow along with my students. I think they taught me more than I taught them, to be honest with you. Taught me to learn how to adapt, taught me that I needed to be on my game all the time, because even the students who are having problems challenged me. It's just the way things worked. And I'm hoping that Maricopa keeps on the tradition, MCC keeps on the tradition. Dr. Pan has provided great leadership to us over these past few years that he's been with us. And again, I'd like to thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Well, we appreciate getting to meet the faculty, especially when we're offering the emeritus certificates, and so we appreciate your being here tonight, and appreciate the basketball team also. The next item on the agenda is the citizens interim, and we have 3 people who have submitted requests to speak. The first are a couple, Ryan O'Reilly and Andrew Kuhn.
Thank you, President Burke, Chancellor Glasper, Governing Board, CEC. 2 years ago, almost today, I stood before you as the president of ASMCC with a resolution from the Associated Students of Mesa Community College, our student government, supporting a tuition increase. Now, this came from us with a stipulation that tuition increases were not the trend. And I know that you heard us and you listened. I know that this tuition increase proposal has the idea of student success in mind. But I want you to think very carefully and very thoroughly of how it will affect students, and that if the pros are greater than the cons in passing this. I no longer speak on behalf of ASMCC, so I'll let Andrew Kuhn, the current president, speak on behalf of the students at Mesa Community College. Thank you.
President Burke, Governing Board, Chancellor Glasper, members of the CEC. I am here today on behalf of the students of Mesa Community College. I am the president of the Associated Students of Mesa Community College. There is a divide in opinion on our campus on whether we agree with the tuition increase or whether we do not. But we do agree that tuition increases as a continuous source of income is not an option. We as students see the regular tuition increases as a problematic trend, and the district must recognize the importance of an affordable education and to explore alternative funding to achieve the highest standard of education. Suggestions are as to follow. Online classes. As we all know, MCC has recently become Higher Learning Commission for online degrees. They have a greater profit margin, which will help with funding student success initiatives. Raising property taxes. Arizona currently ranks 37th in the nation for income taxes as a percentage of property value. And most of all, to reinstate some, if not all, of the $47 million we have lost from state funding to the district since 2006. We asked the district to pursue the last option and call for the state legislature to align itself with Arizona's constitutional values by keeping education as free as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Bob Klassen.
Thank you, President Burke, members of the board, Chairman Glasper, and members of the CEC. My name is Bob Klassen. I'm leader of the Valley Interfaith Project, and while I'm still teaching on an adjunct basis at Mesa Community College, I retired there in 2011 after 27 years of employment. And this group of student athletes that we had before us a little bit ago are what I had the pleasure of working with. And I'm thoroughly, thrilled with the level of academics that they're offered and they partake in. Valley Interfaith Project is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization of more than 40 churches, synagogues, nonprofit, and community organizations. We organize to better the quality of life for our community and families. As such, VIP understands the vital role that the Maricopa Community Colleges play for our community and have a strong history of supporting the work of the district. We are particularly proud of our partnership with you to create the Arizona Career Pathways, a job intermediary program that is moving low-wage income into family-wage jobs. Arizona is still coming through tough times. VIP applauds the work Maricopa Community Colleges have done to provide superior educational experience despite the heavy cuts from the state. We now receive less than 1% of our funding from the state. It's a drastic decrease. The district has done substantial belt tightening and has valiantly navigated these budget difficulties. During this time, the board raised tuition and taxes in order to maintain its service delivery, and did so appropriately. But we are not out of the woods yet, as there looks to be no assistance from the state in the foreseeable future. For this reason, we reasonably request that you support the $5 per credit tuition increase. And we do so with emphasis on your high priority initiatives that you put out, including adding funds for advising, orientation, and placement testing, adding additional residential faculty positions, increasing safety. We feel that this will allow the district to maintain competitive, and we will still rank reasonably among the institutions of higher learning. According to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, university tuition, that's Arizona University tuition in Arizona has increased more than 78% from fiscal year 2008 to fiscal year 2013. During the same period, the district has increased tuition also, but the increase has been less than 17%, and is still very competitive and approximately $900 less than the national average for two-year colleges. This is a great indicator that the district has proven to be a great steward of its finances. We completely sympathize with students, but we are also very frustrated after meeting with the legislature over the past 4 years in an effort to improve education funding. No one likes to increase or pay increased tuition, but at times it is necessary to remain competitive. The quality of, by the year 2016, 61% of the jobs in Arizona will require education beyond high school. The strong, competitively priced education that Maricopa Community College District provides will play a major role in the economic development of Arizona. Both of my daughters obtained their associate's degree at Mesa Community College. The quality of education and support given to them has enabled them both to graduate with a bachelor's degree in 4 years. Quality education experiences like this are not uncommon. This gives reason for Valley Interfaith Project to support this necessary tuition increase that provides the support for safety and education of students who place their trust in the district. And this still strikes us as reasonable and responsible. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jessica Johnson.
My name is Jessica Johnson. I'm a board member of Valley Interfaith Project and a member of Asbury United Methodist Church in Central Phoenix. I'd like to reiterate what Mr. Clausen said. We understand and sympathize with the concerns of the students regarding increasing tuition costs. But we also know that the legislature has not been friendly to investing in education, either K through 12 or higher education. Our educational institutions have been left to fend for themselves. VIP is a nonpartisan organization, and our work at the legislature on both sides of the aisle has taught us that education funding is a real challenge in our State House. Until we reverse this legislative disinvestment in education, we'll continue to face hard choices such as the one you consider tonight. And board members, we understand that it is just that, a hard choice. We urge you to seriously consider this tuition increase, and if you can't approve it tonight, to postpone the decision so that it gets the consideration it deserves. Thank you.
Thank you. We now move to the approval of the order of the agenda. The Chair will entertain a motion to approve the order.
So moved.
Mr. Lum moves. Mr. Saar seconds a motion to approve the order of the agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. The Chair entertains a motion for consideration of the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Saar moves. Mr. Lum seconds a motion for the consideration of the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Hearing none. Is there any discussion? There's no discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. We are now to the, let's see.
Approve the minutes?
Yes. We're at section 4, the action of the minutes of February 26th. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mr. Lum moves.
Second.
Mr. Saar seconds a motion to approve the minutes of February 26. Any discussion?
Would that include the March 5th?
And March 5th, yes,
Would I need to amend the motion to include the?
Yes. You can recommend a friendly amendment if Mr. Lum.
Recommend a friendly amendment.
Accept it.
All right, then the motion then is for the approval of the minutes of February 22nd and March 5. Second occurs. All right. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion carries unanimously. Dr. Glasper, let's see, do you have a report tonight?
Yes, sir. I believe that we're on the non-consent agenda items. Don't those come before the report?
Well, we did. I have it in order. I have this in order on the meeting tonight. Does this come afterward?
I believe the agenda.
Everything that was included under Section 4 action are consent items. They were already approved under the consent. That's why they're
I see.
shaded. And then, so we should be moving to the non-consent items.
Yes. All right. My mistake. All right. We are then to Section 5, the consideration of non-consent action items. The first item is the approval of the proposed fee changes for fiscal year 2013-2014.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, before you pass this to Vice President Thompson, I would like to make some comments.
All right.
Mr. President, members of the board, I really appreciate it. I want to thank the students from Mesa for their comments today, and I want you to be well aware that we have taken into consideration the growth in tuition that has occurred in this institution and looking at what will be happening moving forward. We've made every effort to work with the state of Arizona, and I would like to make one correction. We have lost $60 million since in the last 4 years from the state of Arizona. And that $60 million does get us to the 1% figure that was represented by the additional speakers. We looked at the notion of elasticity of demand, and we recognize that since 1986, the state of Arizona funding was at about 27-28% and is now down to about 1% or less. And in 1980, there was zero tuition charge in this system, and now it's up to about 29%. So the big question is, how high can tuition go before there is a major impact? Some years ago, we did an elasticity of demand study, which in essence said that for every $1 increase in tuition, it would impact about 300 students. And we believe that we have other financial support for those students in need who will be able to pay those dollars. We know the numbers have possibly changed in the last number of years, but we believe that as we look at choices, this is a choice that we're asking the governing board to make. In terms of alternative options, we continue to work with the state of Arizona. And quite frankly, when you look at the budget request for every educational institution in the state of Arizona that has come out from the governor's office, there is money for K-12, there is money for the universities, there's money for rural community colleges, and there's nothing for urbans. So we are running out of choices. But our other alternatives that we're working very diligently with different agencies. We have a number of bills that are in now trying to get resources from the state in relationship to capital around science, technology, engineering, and math. We're working with the legislature to try and get a jobs bill so that we can have access to funding at other levels of resources for the state of Arizona. So we believe that we are doing what's necessary to continue to move forward. A few years ago, the governing board adopted a resolution on college attainment. By adopting that resolution, they challenged us to move forward and double the number of certificates and degrees by the year 2020. We believe that we are moving diligently in that direction. But what that requires is us to have an infrastructure for change. I proffered to the board and to the district that the change should be a one Maricopa notion, that we operate as one institution and not 10 separately credited institutions in a separate district office. We have been moving forward in that direction. We've continued to reduce and become more effective and more efficient. 21st Century initiative that started under the consultant. We have implemented a number of those recommendations, and we have developed this infrastructure for change. I came back to the board in the fall of last year with a monitoring report based upon metrics, based upon developing metrics that are consistent with the voluntary framework for accountability from the American Association of Community Colleges, and also consistent with the visioning document from the Arizona Community College President's Council. These are metrics that allow for progress for students who come to our institutions that move from developmental education into 100-level courses, from 100-level courses into program courses, and then into additional certificate programs, degree programs, and Arizona General Education curriculum of 35 credit hours. So we are looking at changes. We established the baseline with a number of metrics, and the board accepted those metrics. At least we believe that they accepted them by endorsing our report to continue to monitor them and bring them back this November. So that became for us the baseline for us to compare how we will be looked at moving forward. And that's a notion of accountability. Just like we're working on a performance-based funding model for the state of Arizona as a pilot for Lumina, because we're moving towards accountability. So we have established the benchmarks for accountability and are moving forward. Last board meeting, we presented the seamless student experience. We talked about some other initiatives around student success initiative around developmental ed, also around IT and public safety. All of these items are focused on a one Maricopa approach to moving our system forward. Tonight we're asking for the board to consider, after this development, of building an infrastructure for change to allow that change to move forward. In order to do that, we need sustainable funding. We need sustainable funding to continue to make the changes that are necessary and to implement the recommendations that we have asked the board to allow us to consider and move forward. And I recognize that based upon us moving forward, that the charge is for the chancellor to be held accountable for now achieving these goals, and that's with or without resources. So we accept that particular challenge, but we're asking for the resources. I came into this particular infrastructure for change thinking that we could reallocate financial resources from colleges and districts where we had resources if we moved to one financial aid process for the system or one admissions process. But the analysis came forward and in essence said that those individuals who were doing those jobs in essence had 3 and 4 jobs because they were doing other things within their institutions. So some of that savings did not materialize. So in order for us to move forward, we're going to have to make choices, and I think our students recognize that and our speakers recognize that as well. So as we move forward, I asked the board to consider that this is one leg of the stool that we're trying to replace. The last board meeting I talked about the fact that state aid was one of those pieces that we probably will not get any material increases in state aid for the next 4 or 5 years. The state does not have the wherewithal. They need to move beyond the window of June 30 because of the temporary sales tax that will go away. And as we move forward, we need to make some serious choices, and we will be planning based upon the choices that the governing board, or the decision the governing boards will make tonight, and also the ones that they will make in terms of property taxes. I believe that we will be reaching some levels of elasticity of demand in other areas of this district without having sustainable resources. One-time resources put us in jeopardy of a number of things. They put us in jeopardy of losing a AAA bond rating. They put us in jeopardy of not being able to sustain buildings that we are committing to opening. So as we have done for the last 10 to 15 years, as we bring forward a request, as we will tonight, to approve the last $150 million bond referendum, We will not make recommendations to open up any facilities or to move them forward beyond the development of the scope unless we have money to open and heat and cool those facilities. And the last thing that I will leave you with is that there are limited choices out there for us as a community college. Part of what I propose to the board is a corporate college, an institution that will allow us a different bite at the apple as it relates to workforce training. That will be a program that takes some time to develop, but we think that there will be fruit there that will allow us to have additional resources to allocate to our colleges. But as we move forward, we still need to be able to do our daily jobs, and we need to be able to become more effective and more efficient. We'll be piloting a prioritization study in the next year in order to decide, all else being equal, should we be doing things that we did 5 years ago, 10 years ago today. So we are partners in all of this, and we recognize that whatever decision you choose to make, we will move forward, and we will maintain our focus on student success. And I congratulate our faculty and our staff and our administrators and our presidents for over the last 4 years, 5 years now, we have done what's necessary to move this district forward. And I employ all of us to continue to do so as we continue to look at the goals established by our governing board. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Thompson, would you care to comment on the proposed fee changes for fiscal year 2013-14?
Mr. President, members of the board, the first item before you for action is on proposed fee changes, and then we will follow with the action item on the tuition and fee rate. The proposed fee changes were a first reading last month, and they are for course fees as well as a program fee for ABE. There are 184 new fees, 9 increases, and 71 reductions in fees or elimination of fees. The net revenue impact is about $463,000. We've provided you with quite a lot of backup material to detail the reasons for the increases or decreases or eliminations, and some information about what the impacts are by fee or by the program fee. And we do recommend its approval.
Is there a motion to approve the proposed fee changes for fiscal year 2013-2014?
Moved.
Mr. Saar moves.
Second.
Mr. Lum seconds a motion for the proposed tuition and fee changes for fiscal year 2013-14. Is there discussion?
Just briefly, I really appreciate the detail that goes into determining these fees. It ranges from everything from test tubes in the chemistry labs to student fees, quite frankly, in general. So it's a way that we can balance out the cost of a particular class or program with the students who participate in that. And I think that's a good way to do it. And I appreciate the fact that students know where their fees go and are confident that those fees actually do the job they're supposed to do.
And I'm appreciative year to year that there are some reductions. Sometimes we do away with fees, so it's not a matter of just keeping and adding. We are reducing as well as adding. Any other discussion? And all those in favor of the approval of the proposed tuition and fees for fiscal year 2014 budget, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. The next item is a, did I read that correctly? No. Did I say tuition and fees or fees? What did I say? It should be, yes, I misstated that. We were voting on the proposed fees for fee changes for fiscal year 2013-2014. And that's what we passed. Isn't that true? That what you voted on? Is that what you voted on?
Exactly. That's exactly what we voted on.
Reading on the wrong line. The next item is the approval of the proposed tuition and fees for fiscal year 2013-2014. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mr. Lum moves.
I'll second.
Mr. Miranda seconds a motion for the approval of the proposed tuition and fees for fiscal year 2013-2014.
Question, roll call.
Well, first, Ms. Thompson is going to present this, please.
Mr. President, members of the board, this is the second presentation that we'll be making before the board related to our proposed budget. Last month we started presentations with a first reading of tuition and fees. This is the action item that we're presenting to the board. Next month we'll seek preliminary adoption of the proposed budget, and then that will set a ceiling on the size of the budget, and then we'll move forward with publishing the legally required schedules that we put into the Arizona Republic each year with updated information on our budget. And then May is final budget adoption along with the truth and taxation vote, because that is required because we're proposing the 2% levy increase. This particular action item is for proposal of a $5 per credit hour increase in tuition and fees to $81 a credit hour. For perspective, and there's been some discussion about this evening, this increase in tuition, as is true of the proposed 2% levy increase, is the first in the last, or is the second in the last 2 years, and the second in the last 5 years as well. We've had pretty moderate increases in revenues over the last few years because we've been very cognizant of the economy and the effects of raising taxes or tuition on our property owners and our students. But it does come at a time when we did lose $60 million in state aid, so a very considerable resource was dramatically reduced during this period. So in addition to trying to be careful about resources that were increased, we also have looked at making budget reductions in order to accommodate the loss of state aid, and we did make $35 million in operational budget cuts on an annual basis over a period of years, and then $11 million in capital, so $46 million in reductions. We have tried to be very sensitive to adjusting our budget very carefully to the reductions in resources. But as the Chancellor indicated, over this period we've also been planning a number of initiatives that we think will significantly improve student success and the benefits that our community, broader community as well as our student community, can realize from coming to our colleges. So we do have a number of recommendations for initiatives that we've enumerated in February and are included in this item, and we recommend this tuition increase be funded in order to help us advance those initiatives.
Is there discussion on the proposal?
Yeah.
Mr. Saar?
You know, this certainly, as you realize, is a difficult decision because students are why we're here. And even though this is a 6.5% increase this year, we've looked at prior years where we've, in the last 10, for example, a 17% increase. So we're adding these together. We're asking students to pay a greater share of their education, which is not uncommon in today's world. We can look at our neighbors at ASU and see a much greater increase in what the students pay. My concern is that we're not identifying what return those students are going to get on that greater investment that they're making in their education. They also invest their time, and that's just as easily justifiable as the money that they spend. The initiatives that the Chancellor has put in place in the last several years that I've been involved in the district have been outstanding. And yet, if you look at the last 10 years of our internal documents showing progress in areas of student achievement, and in particular more detail than that, we haven't done much more than we were doing 10 years ago. We're doing a great job, but we haven't really moved the bar far enough along to my mind, to justify that 17% increase in tuition and additional property taxes. I understand the state has reduced their funding to virtually nothing, and that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. We've managed to, through good fiscal efforts on part of our staff, get through that process and still offer the same as we've always offered those students that walk through our doors. I'm not opposed to any of the initiatives that the Chancellor has put in place. My concern is that we haven't identified what those initiatives are really going to do for our students. They're going to make it more comfortable, obviously. They're going to make it easier to register. They're going to possibly provide more safety on the campuses, but that's not the real reason students come to our classrooms. They come here to leave here with a better chance of their quality of life. And I haven't really been shown how this additional money is going to be detailed enough to make me feel that that's going to be better by 6.5% than it is right now. So I'm looking down the road at maybe having to do this, but today I just don't have the detail that I'd like to see to justify a 6.5% increase in tuition.
Others?
I think this does not come lightly, and I thank for the input that the students put and the other guests put. We lost our state funding. I think as a board member, I'm committed that this money is used to further the student success, further that we ensure that the money is well spent. The money is going to be spent in the classrooms on the students. I'm committed to not spend more money on security than on student success. I mean, we need to revisit that, and that's my commitment. But my commitment as a board member is this money is going to be used wisely, well, and I think to continue the job we do, I think we need to have this increase.
Mr. Veranda?
When we look at the cost of education and we compare it to the universities and compare it, I think some figures have been out there, the national figures. We certainly are doing pretty good in that area, and I think we need to look at that. And we're unfortunately caught between a rock and a hard place, and I think it's the state has failed to live up to its obligation, and I applaud the student that brought forth the concept, the constitutional concept actually, that education should be as free as possible. I mean, that's in the Constitution. I think our legislature has failed at both levels to do that. And I'd like to make points on that at the end, but for right now, in terms of the tuition increase, I support it simply because I have confidence the administration is going to divert it to the proper areas to impact student success. And not just student success as a program we listed here, but in other areas. If we don't continue to keep up with the cost of education and keep up with technology needs that we have in the district, and with all due respect to Mr. Saar about, registration being easier, well, that's not only a convenience, but it's also a cost savings for the district. I look forward to completely utilizing technology in every area that we can in the district. Because when we get to that point, I think you'll see cost savings. You're not going to see it right away, but you'll see it down the road. And that's the reason why I support it. And again, I applaud the students for coming forth and reminding us that we can't rely on student tuition increase as constantly to bail us out when we get in the jam. But I'd like to go back a little bit and tie this into what all of us have remarked and spoken to, and that's the whole idea of the state legislature. Sometimes what I've noticed in the district is we throw our hands in the air and we say there's nothing we can do with this state legislature. Well, I believe we can. And I think we need to put renewed focus and renewed energy into trying to convince legislators that it's in their best interest to help us train the workforce for the future. Right now, the talk in the legislature is very much focused on workforce development. And as I've stated in the past in some of my comments is that, there's a reason why the Education Committee not only says higher education, but it also includes the phrase workforce development. And that's our responsibility, and that's one of the prime responsibilities for the community college district. And finally, I think we need to really look at strategies to convince the state legislature. And believe me, marketing is going to be a very integral part of it. There's an untold story about Maricopa County Community College and the wonderful work that we do. And it needs to be told. And when it's told, I'm confident that legislators will hear it and listen and act on it. But until this community college district penetrates the halls of those two, the House and the Senate over the state legislature, we're not going to have success. So I urge the district that as we move forward with tuition increases or property levies or increases, that we also look very seriously at what new strategies we can develop to convince 60 people in the House and 30 people in the Senate that we need money and that we need to fund education at community college level. So I'm all in support of the tuition increase for those reasons.
Thank you. I support this increase for several reasons. One is that there's a commitment to hire more full-time faculty over a period of years so that we increase the percentage of full-time faculty in the classroom. I believe that will be a benefit to students. A second area that we're going to fund is the Student Seamless Experience, which helps students move among our colleges much more efficiently and will help them when they graduate and transfer to a four-year school to be able to get a transcript that is one transcript as opposed to their having to go to several colleges to ask for transcripts. I think that will be a benefit to students. A third area of funding has to do with student support. And if they receive that support, I think that they will be able to continue and to graduate with certificates and degrees more easily. That's a benefit to students. We're going to spend some money on public safety, and I would much rather hire additional trained public safety officers to protect our students than to arm employees to protect our students. As Chief Longman has shown to us, if we hire additional public safety officers, we still are well below a national average for protecting students. But we will have public safety officers there from 6 a.m. to about 10 p.m. at the time when our students are in class. And I hope that the students will see that as a benefit to them, as our commitment to protect them. I see that expenditure as something of as insurance, so that our students will be protected while they are there. There's a mention of technology. We are so dependent on technology in this district for instruction, for human resources, in the business department, throughout our college. And we have cut back on technology for the last year or so, and we need to address the technology needs in the next year. Those are major reasons for my voting on this issue, and I hope that the students will see this at all of these areas of spending as a benefit to them. I voted on issues in the past that grieved me. Didn't want to do it, but felt that I had to do it. And I'm going to vote yes on this tonight because I think that we need to invest in these programs next year to continue the excellence that we have had in the past. You asked that we do it a roll call vote. All right. Mr. Miranda, how do you vote?
Aye. Aye.
Right. Mr. Lum?
I vote aye.
I vote aye. Mr. Saar?
Aye.
Okay. The motion passes 3-1. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the resolution ordering the sale of $151,900,000 aggregate principal amount for the Maricopa County Community College District of Maricopa County, Arizona, for General Obligation Bonds Series 2013. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. I'll second.
Mr. Saar moves. Mr. Lum seconds the motion to approve the sale of General Obligation Bonds Series 2013. Ms. Thompson?
Mr. President, members of the board, in 2004, the voters of Maricopa County approved our referendum to have a capital development program financed by general obligation bonds totaling a little over $951 million. And they showed great support for that proposal or that referendum with 76% of the voters and 100% of the precincts voting for our referendum. We've moved forward with that trust that was placed in us, and we are very far along in our program, probably about 75% complete, and we have on 4 times in the past issued our bond series, and now we have the final series of approximately $151 million that we are looking to issue in the next couple of months. I do have Nick Dodd from RBC. They are our financial advisors, and he was just going to speak to you for a couple of minutes just on kind of what the market looks like for municipal bonds at this point in time.
Mr. President, members of the board, my name is Nick Dodd, and I'm with RBC Capital Markets. We've had the pleasure of working with the district for a number of years, including during the entire life cycle of this bond election. As Vice Chancellor Thompson mentioned, this is your fifth and final bond sale. It'll utilize all of the remaining authorization to finalize and finish the projects that were approved in 2004. Just as far as the process is concerned, this is really the first of two resolutions or actions the board will take. This simply directs staff and the consultants you've retained to continue moving forward with the process. We will be back in 4 weeks from tonight with a final resolution really directing staff to continue that process. So this is just the first of two approvals. As far as timing is concerned, the plan would be to then sell the bonds in May of this year and deliver the proceeds to the district 2 or 3 weeks after the bonds are sold in mid-June. With regard to the bonds themselves, as Chancellor Glasper mentioned earlier, the district has for a number of years enjoyed a AAA rating from all three bond rating agencies. It would be our expectation that that would be reaffirmed in this process. You are unique in that you have those three AAAs from all three agencies, and you're one of really just two community colleges, two, maybe three, in the entire country that enjoy that distinction. So you've done everything to this point to maintain that, and we don't foresee that being a problem as we go through this process. As a result of those high ratings and what's frankly a historically low interest rate environment, our expectation is that you'll receive very favorable interest rates on these bonds, strong demand from investors to invest in these bonds, and we look forward to moving through that process. Last thing I'd just mention to the board, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, this usually comes up when we talk about a low interest rate environment. Refinancings, we've done a number of those over the years. We monitor that with staff closely. At the current time, there's no opportunities to do refinancing, so this is all new money. That's in part because as recently as just a year or two ago, the college did sell some bonds. We call them refunding bonds, but they're refinancings. We will continue to monitor that moving forward, and if something were to change, obviously bring that to your attention. With that brief remarks, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah.
What's the maximum you're looking at in terms of rates of our cost?
I think a conservative estimate today is 3.75. We believe if you sold today, it'd probably be lower than that, but we're also not selling the bonds for 2 months. And I would note in the voter information pamphlet, we assumed, I think, 5%. And all of your bond sales over the last really almost decade have come in considerably below that.
Other questions? Thank you. All right. Any other discussion from the board? We do have a motion, don't we?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of the approval of the resolution ordering the sale of $151,090,000 aggregate principal amount of Maricopa County Community College District of Maricopa County, Arizona, General Obligation Bond Series 2013, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. The next item is the approval of audiovisual systems contract award for health sciences remodel at Scottsdale Community College. Ms. Thompson?
Mr. President, members of the board, this is really much as the title suggests, the purchase of some equipment for a remodel that's underway at the college. And it's a significant project for the college, a little over $400,000 for the award, and we recommend its approval.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Mr. Saar moves.
Second.
Mr. Lum seconds a motion for the approval of the Audiovisual Systems Contract Award for Health Sciences remodel at Scottsdale Community College. Any discussion?
And just a general discussion on some of these projects. Our bonding is sold on a cash flow basis.
Correct.
These are projects that have been in planning for a long time. I mean, each of them in different time. So the bonds that we're looking at selling are just part of the process of paying for all of these series of projects that have been in the planning for a long time.
Mr. President, members of the board, we do finance on a cash flow basis. So for any individual project, you might have, just for example, a project starting in 2005 might have had some of the costs of development coming out of Series A, some coming out of B, and so on and so forth. So many projects are funded in part. Possibly some are funded in full from a particular bond issuance, but that's not the way that the financing is designed. So the projects, as you might recall, we had a big bit of inflation early in our program. So a number of the projects originally planned were modified because we had to adjust the overall budget to what reflected actual prices. And many of the early projects went forward, but were supplemented by later projects that effectively were eliminated or not. We also had some changes that came about because of opportunities to purchase buildings rather than construct on campus. So the actual plan is somewhat different than it had been as originally envisioned, but the intent is the same. We've added a considerable amount of square footage already and more to come. So we're on target with the overall plan and concept, but not necessarily in the exact details of what it looked like in 2004.
Lum, do you have a comment?
No comment.
Okay. All right. If there is no more discussion, let's see. We need a motion to approve. Did we have a motion?
Yes, we did.
We did it. Okay. If there's no more discussion, all those in favor of the approval of the audiovisual systems contract, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. The next item is the approval of a contract award for the construction of a new art gallery at Mesa Community College. Ms. Thompson?
Mr. President, members of the board, this will add slightly less than 5,000 gross square feet that will provide dedicated learning lab space, provide the art department with a suitable facility to implement new academic programs and for exhibition design, and it is part of our bond program.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
I move we approve this item.
Mr. Lum moves.
Second.
Mr. Saar seconds the approval of a contract award for the construction of a new art gallery at Mesa Community College. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. The next motion is the approval of a conceptual approval to remodel Building D, the Child Care Center, for the ceramics program at Paradise Valley Community College. Ms. Thompson?
Mr. President, members of the board, this is also part of our bond program, and this will remodel the former Child Care Center for the ceramics program, as has been indicated, and provide more appropriate space for that program.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve? Mr. Saar moves. Mr. Miranda seconds a motion for the conceptual approval of to remodel Building D, the Child Care Center, for the ceramics program at the Paradise Valley Community College. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. The next item is the approval of the conceptual approval for the remodel of the Bullpit Auditorium at Phoenix College. Ms. Thompson?
Mr. President, members of the board, this also is part of our bond program and will remodel the Bullpit Auditorium as indicated in the title, and we recommend its approval.
Okay.
I move we approve this item.
Mr. Saar moves. Did Mr. Miranda second the motion for the approval, conceptual approval for the remodel of the Bullpit Auditorium at Phoenix College? Any discussion?
We're not adding any seats, though, right, Darren?
Excuse me?
We're not adding any seats to the Move it.
Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Lum, I don't believe so. Defer to Dr. Solly if she has the answer.
Better seats.
Wider seats.
I just want to comment that this is one of the most used auditoriums in the district. It has been there for decades.
I think it's the oldest, isn't it?
I'm sure, but it has been used well. So I'm pleased that we're doing this remodel because it will serve this district well for decades hence, I think. But all those in favor of the proposal, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion carries unanimously. All right, the next item is under Academic Affairs, approval of a contract award, IMPAC International. Dr. Harper Marinick.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Members of the board, we request your approval for the award of a contract for professional services to Impact International. And this is to provide external evaluation services for the grant that we received from the U.S. Department of Labor back in the fall. It is a requirement of the grant that we have external evaluation to assess the implementation, the performance, and the outcomes of the grant.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mr. Lum moves. Mr. Saar seconds. A motion for the approval of a contract award for IMPAQ International. Any discussion? I will point out that the monies for this contract are part of the grant, and it's required by the government, so it's just a normal process. But all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. The next item on the agenda is a first reading, a review of the preliminary proposed fiscal year 2013-2014 budget. Ms. Thompson.
Mr. President, members of the board, Gabe Murphy will present to you some additional information, some similar to last month that was presented on tuition and fees, and then a little bit more detail on some of the elements of the proposed budget. And as indicated, next month we'll be seeking preliminary adoption of the proposed budget. So I'd ask Gabe to begin her presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, board members, CEC members, and honored guests. I am very pleased to present to you for information tonight for the first time the proposed budget for next fiscal year. We're looking at, in summary, an overall decrease of $36.7 million, mostly related to the reduction in capital funds as we near the end of the 2004 capital development program. The absence of capital state aid is sorely missed. Our general operating fund is projected to increase related to the proposed tuition rate increase and a proposed increase in the tax levy. So we would have more revenues in our general operating fund. Also, an additional an increase in our auxiliary fund and an increase in our restricted fund as well. In terms of the general fund increases, this is where we budget most of our financial activities in our general operating fund. The revenue here comes from three fund sources: property tax, tuition and fees, and state aid. The governing board sets tuition and fees, which it's already done earlier in the meeting. The board also will set the property tax rates within the constitutional limit and according to the process that's outlined in state law, together with a small amount of miscellaneous resources. We're looking at a total allocable additional revenue of $29.22 million for next year. So let me go over briefly the auxiliary and the restricted, and then we'll talk some more about what's going on with the proposal for a general operating fund. So our auxiliary fund is mostly fee-for-service activities. Students pay a fee, they receive a service. It does not really support the overall operation of the district, but again, it's dedicated fee-for-service activities. With our restricted fund, those are restricted in use. Most of it is federal grants, financial aid, certain gifts, but most is restricted in use, and again is not available to support the general operations of the district. With our capital budget highlights, we're looking at a budget decline for fiscal year 14. Our plan relative to our 2004 capital development program was to divide the voter-approved $951 million program into 5 issues. We've already issued 1 through 4, and we're working very hard to get ready for the 5th and final issue later this spring, which is akin to applying for a mortgage on steroids, because we will go through working with the bond rating agencies, and they leave no stone unturned in asking questions. So we'll work very, very hard to maintain our AAA bond rating, and we'll be back to you in April, hopefully with some updated information. In terms of the potential expenditure increases, we have a short list of mandatory needs. And again, these are items for which there is either an outside statutory obligation, such as the employer's share of the retirement system rate increase. There are internal requirements by policy, like the employees' policy manuals require increases for some employee groups after 20 years or 30 years, and if employees attain educational degrees or advanced training. There are contractual obligations for software. We're looking at increasing the operating support available for new buildings that are open through our bond program, an increase in President's scholarships for students who have graduated at the top of their high school class and meet established criteria, so we would have funds available for them. And then at our last board meeting, the board approved the increase in the health insurance for employees, and since that was already approved, I've included that as part of the mandatory costs. With those things together, we think that we're going to have enough resources from new construction added to the property roll since last year to support these mandatory increases. The problem is we just don't really have much else, and we're looking towards the property tax levy in addition to the tuition increase that was approved earlier. I can go through all of these initiatives, but I have to tell you, I think President Burke did a very good job of going through all of the needs earlier in terms of the students' seamless student experience, student success initiative, and the additional residential faculty are really things that we're putting in to increase services and support to students. With the seamless student, with the student success initiative, with mandatory orientation to get them in to provide better services to them while they're here, both as they register and in the classroom, with providing additional full-time, permanent, core residential faculty. We're also looking for an increase in the public safety officers for the safety and security, our faculty, staff, and students. Need-based scholarships, which will help to offset the tuition increase. Increase in information technology to help us maintain our big enterprise systems, our accounting system, our human resources system, and our student information system. And marketing and public outreach to help us better inform residents of Maricopa County what the community colleges are here to do for them. And again, the board may decide to approve a salary adjustment as it sees fit. In terms of the property tax levy proposal, the budget for 2014 is for a 2% increase in the tax levy. So under this example, a house valued at $100,000 in 2013 would pay $115.63 to the Maricopa District. In order to keep that same cost for next year, the governing board would need to increase the tax rate because the assessed values have dropped. If the governing board approves a 2% increase, then the homeowner that paid $115.63 last year would pay $117.94 next year. That's a difference of $2.31. If we were talking about a $200,000 home, then the impact would double, and instead of $2.31, the impact would be $4.62. And trying to show an example of the impact, it's pretty common practice to begin with an example that involves a $100,000 home. When we look at the truth in taxation statutes, for example, they require us to publish that kind of information in the newspaper. But there are several factors that can have an impact on the actual tax bill and the actual taxes that homeowners pay. And it's pretty complicated. According to the Maricopa County Assessor's Office, changes in property tax bills really result from three things: the amount that's levied by the jurisdiction, the property's value in comparison to other properties, and bond overrides. So if we really look at the property taxes as a whole in Maricopa County, we can make projections about how Maricopa's change in the levy would affect homeowners on the average, but a person's actual tax bill will be affected by property values, which are determined by the market, changes in law that change how property is assessed, and decisions made by other taxing districts. And there are a number of other taxing districts in Maricopa County. So that as of fiscal year 13, the Maricopa district was 12% of the taxes, property taxes levied in Maricopa County. But most really were had to do with the levy by school districts. So one thing I did want to make you aware of, because in the property tax bills when they go out, there is contact information on if you have a question about your property tax bill, and it's my telephone number on the property tax bills that go out that refer to who to call in Maricopa Community College District. So there are assistance programs available. The county treasurer's office offers information about that. The seniors valuation program is designed to freeze the full cash value of a primary residence for a senior. The Constitution exempts allowed property owned by widows and disabled residents. And the Elderly Assistance Fund is a county program that reduces the property tax of qualified elderly taxpayers. So I do have information available for the customer service department that can take that, take those calls with the treasurer's office.
Hey, can I ask a question on the seniors valuation?
Mm-hmm.
It's not comparable to Prop 13 in California, is it?
I don't believe that it is. It was talking about freeze the full cash value of the primary residence, and it's based on their age and also based on their income. So there are some criteria, and once that's frozen, then the Elderly Assistance Fund kind of kicks in And you can also qualify for additional assistance through that program as well.
Do you see any change in those numbers in the last couple of years, looking at what our actual revenue would be from our taxes if these change substantially?
I don't really know. I know that one of the things that's really happened a lot are the people that have protested their assessments, and some have been able to reduce their tax bills through that. But whether the county is providing more assistance, I'm not aware of that.
The tax rate itself is established by the county now. We kind of go out, establish the dollar amount that we're asking the taxpayers to pay. Is that right?
That is true, but we do calculate that rate, and we let you know, and we have to publish in the paper what our piece of that rate would be. But what we technically send to the county is the dollar amount. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to. Thank you.
Thank you. The monitoring reports, Ms. Thompson.
Mr. President, members of the board, this is the budget analysis report for the general fund for the first 8 months of the fiscal year. And as I have reported in the past, we are very much on target in terms of our spending. It's typical, as I have said before, that is because most of our spending is on payroll and benefits, and that's a 2-week cycle every year. So we are right on par with where we've been in the past and what we would have expected to see. In terms of revenue collections, that is also what we would expect in terms of tuition typically coming in August and January or December, and then tax revenues coming in October and November, and then again we expect in April and May. So we're on target with our collections, and we expect to meet our financial stability requirement that is set in board policy.
Okay. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the appointment of a board member to the Maricopa Foundation Board. And I'm not sure about protocol here. I know someone who would like to do this, and without objection, may I appoint that person?
Sure.
I would like to appoint our newest board member, Mr. Ben Miranda, to serve on the Maricopa Foundation Board.
I concur with your appointment. I look forward to having you. Sure you do.
Thank you.
I'm also on that board as well from the city.
Oh, well, good.
So we'll share that duty.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. All right. Community linkage, governing board reports. Mr. Lum?
Yeah, I want to report some activities that I've been involved in and I'm really proud of. The Coyote Center groundbreaking at Chandler Gilbert College was really well done. Thank you, Dr. Lujan. We had 3 mayors from Chandler, Gilbert, and Queen Creek there. It was a nice ceremony. It's going to be a beautiful building, and it's going to be close to Pecos Road, so I drove past the college looking for it and not seeing it. It's set back, so the college will be very visible with this good-looking building, so it'll be nice. I went to the Cesar Chavez Foundation dinner a couple nights ago, where my brother-in-law and sister-in-law were honored, and it was a great ceremony. Dr. Anasali was there with her faculty, and I'm really proud of them. Went to the Arizona Small Business Legislative Luncheon. Did a really good job. We honored 14 businesses throughout the state, winners of startup businesses, so I'm glad the Arizona Small Business Center is doing well. I went to the League of Innovation Conference. It was an outstanding conference, packed with information, just learned so much. A lot of good examples of teaching and learning and how to do business. I'll do a report to the board in the near future. I attended the grand opening of the Gateway to Incubator along with Doyle Burke, and really proud of what we're doing over there at the at Gateway College. Dr. Giovannini, I'm proud of the effort you've done there. That was a great grand opening. You got to see the businesses there. I went over there, talked to most of the businesses, and introduced myself, and they're all excited about starting their business, and some wonderful. It was a great turnout. I attended a meeting with Achi and Machi. It looks like the two Hispanic administrative groups are getting together, and I look forward to more work with them, and I'm proud of their efforts of coming together.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Miranda?
Briefly, I had the privilege of visiting the Chandler Gilbert, and thank you for the reception. A great campus, learned a lot about drones as well. It's interesting what's going on out there. And as you know, my wife graduated from your community college, and I have to take her back there again. But anyway, also I have visited, although I cover basically South Mountain Community College, Gateway, and Estrella Community College. I also kind of adopted Phoenix College because it's down the street from my law office. So I'm a frequent visitor over there, either for coffee or to visit some of the student groups. So appreciate the hospitality the president shows me every time that I go there. Also, I accepted an invitation this week to meet with faculty association, I believe, over at Mesa Community College. I believe it's going to be May 2nd or 3rd. And finally, this week we're all celebrating Cesar Chavez's birthday, and throughout the country he's being celebrated. We should take heart the wonderful work of this great man. I had the privilege and honor of working with him for the last 8 years before he passed away. Enjoyed every minute. He was a frequent visitor in my home and also at my office. And whenever he asked for something, it was very difficult to say no to that man. But I enjoyed very much some of the celebrations that are going on. I hope to visit Glendale Community College. I believe that I got an invitation to get there on Friday, so I hope to visit there. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Saar?
To add to the event that Mr. Lum talked about with the small business group at the Capitol, a small world, I'm walking up, and this young man comes up and says, Mr. Saar, and I look at him, and he was one of the award winners and one of my previous students. In spite of what I messed up in his life, he did really well. And it was good to see that the efforts of the small business group in our district and in the state provide the tools that entrepreneurs, as he is, become successful. And it was kind of fun to see him in all the efforts he went through in high school. He wasn't my best student, but he was the hardest working student, and it shows that pays off in the end. I just came back last weekend from Texas for the ACCT Leadership Conference. I've been to a few of those now, and I learn something every time I go. Anytime you sit down with 80 to 100 other trustees and executives from other community colleges across the country, you get a good perspective of what we do here and what they're doing, both in terms of taking care of their students and also meeting their goals. But you always come back with some new ideas. So poor Chancellor is going to have to live with both mine and Mr. Lum's excitement from coming back, and I look forward to presenting to the board some of what I did find out at that conference.
Thanks. I had the opportunity to attend the League of Innovation conference for chancellors, presidents, and board presidents at the Biltmore this past month, and it was entertaining and interesting to hear presentations from Department of Education, from the former president of the League of Innovation, Dr. Terry O'Banion, and to hear a presentation on disruptive innovation, and to have a presentation on MOOCs, which we're going to hear about. It was an excellent conference and enjoyed it very much. I did attend the grand opening of the Center for Entrepreneurial Innovation at Gateway, the opening of the groundbreaking of the Coyote Center at Chandler Gilbert, and Also, Mr. Lum and I attended an audit committee this month, so it's been a very busy month. Next on the agenda is internal community. Chancellor report, Dr. Glasper.
Mr. President, members of the board, I just want to make a couple of quick announcements before we move into the presentation on the MOOCs. I, too, was saddened to hear about the death of Eddie Basha. He was a great friend to our district and contributed to our foundation over the years. And he, as you well know, he was a community leader and supporter of education, and we will miss him. I had an opportunity to visit him at his office a number of times about some projects. And I think as we continue the legacy around education, both he and his wife have done well as leaders in education in our state. I'd like to acknowledge Ms. Nikki Jackson in her last official board meeting tonight, and thank her for her service for Maricopa and wish her well moving forward. We also have in our presence an award winner. Dr. Maria Harper-Meredith will be receiving an award for top influential Hispanic from the Arizona Business Magazine. So, congratulations. I recently returned from a trip to Sydney, Australia. The host was the Sydney Institute of TAFE, Technical and Further Education. I'm a member of the RC 2020, which is Renewal and Change Urban Community Colleges. And we had a global forum around workforce. And there were a number of different topics that were there. And one of the interesting topics that came from Australia was the challenge of prosperity. They have not had a recession. So they are dealing with the fact that they've not had a recession, but they have almost mirrored challenges that we have in the U.S. as it relates to dealing with disadvantaged students and population changes and issues with the university systems and so forth. There were representatives from the RC group that represented the U.S., Australia, United Kingdom, Ireland, Canada, and we also have members from Saudi Arabia. So there was a perspective to talk about what is happening in terms of workforce training throughout the global world here. A couple of things I wanted to highlight on are some of the challenges that they are experiencing. And one of the major challenges that came forward from all institutional sectors would be the issues around public versus private, and the challenges of trying to work with state institutions such as government in terms of balancing resources for an institution such as Maricopa that historically has been funded at a state level, such as other institutions around the country and national and internationally. But they are now looking to try and provide, trying to determine whether or not education is truly a public versus a private good. And as they begin to look at that, there is a shift that's going on internationally as well around privatization of higher education in many places. And clearly in the UK and in Ireland, they are moving into that particular model because the governments are beginning to pull away, and many have no choices. So as we begin to look at what happens with Maricopa as it looks at the loss of the state aid piece or significant piece of it over the period of time, there's a number of lessons to be learned by looking at some of our international partners. And as we begin to look at workforce in many areas, global credentials came up a number of times, and that individuals having credentials that could be certified across multiple international jurisdictions so that people would have credentials that could be portable across the country. Performance-based funding models, the notion of accountability is occurring around the nation as well in the world. So as we begin to look at this notion of accountability, we're going to be, especially for Maricopa, because of the work we're doing on the Lumina project, we can take some lessons learned from Australia in terms of helping to build our particular funding model that talks about outcomes as it relates to those students who are moving through our pipeline that have not been traditionally rewarded from a public funding source. So I'll be providing that information to our staff. I liked the individual topics. I had an opportunity to present on funding and governance, and there was discussions around mutual recognition, as I mentioned, of global economy, thinking differently and connecting differently with your different populations, and the whole notion about not having to build facilities, but finding ways, in addition to online education, to have less costly opportunities to provide education for those who may be in different parts of our county, especially if we start looking at the fact that we serve 9,200 square miles and we want to provide some educational facilities in other areas. And then lastly, we talked about completions, challenges, and solutions. And a number of the countries, including Australia, have adopted the same completion goal. And they are looking to increase to about a 46 to 48% level where they currently are, and I think they're at about 25%. So internationally, the completion and attainment goal is out there for everyone. So I'll be looking at my notes and providing some analysis for the CEC group so we can incorporate some of the best practices that are going on nationally. With that, I would like then to ask Dr. Donna Gaudet from Scottsdale Community College and Dr. Jennifer Freed from Rio Salado to introduce this item. And Chris, are you taking the lead on this? Chris? Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to do what you just did.
Oh, I thought you were going to. I thought you were going to do more than that.
Well, that's what I'm going to do. So we do welcome them to the podium. It would be great. A lot has, I'll just say, been written and talked about lately about MOOCs, and those are massive open online courses. So we have two resident experts to enlighten us more. I know the board has been very interested in learning more about MOOCs, and so we look forward to the presentation.
And I will mention, as they're getting addressed, the last session on completion challenges and solutions, one of the representatives was an Australian representative from the private sector. And they have expanded the private outreach to a number of institutions, not only in Australia, but 3 or 4 institutions here in the United States. And MOOCs are going to be a primary part of their agenda because they believe it's part of the future, and they're literally looking at trying to have outreaches throughout the entire world.
Did they talk about, a worldwide educational portion where a student can take a class from a college in Germany that might qualify?
Yes. As a matter of fact, what they were trying to do for the districts that were there from around internationally, they were asking us to see if we can establish courses that they could recommend students to take that will be of substantial equivalence that would transfer online or whatever.
How do they handle accreditation over at other places in the United States?
They have well, in Australia they have what they call it's a country accreditation. It's not province or state or regional. It's country.
Is it peer reviewed or is it governmentally?
It's a balance. It's a mix of both.
Don't let us interrupt. Well, greetings, good evening, and we appreciate the chance to talk to you about massively open online courses, otherwise known as MOOCs. And the most common symbol associated with the MOOC, of course, is the cow, for obvious reasons. So Jennifer and I are going to go through a little bit about the history of MOOCs, and she has taken a couple of MOOCs, so she's going to give us some student perspective. And then I don't know if the board is aware, but we do teach online classes at Scottsdale Community College. In fact, and I'm teaching a MOOC this semester, so we'll talk a little bit more about that. So the first slide is created by a really neat kind of a tool. It's called Wordle. And what I did was there's a recent article that came out in the New York Times. I don't know if you know that 2012 was the year of the MOOC. I didn't know that until I started reading. But I took all the words from that article and put it into Wordle, and you can see then the ones that, of course, that are bigger are the ones that were repeated more often. So if you've read a little bit about MOOCs, which there seems to be a new article coming out every day about MOOCs, these are some of the buzzwords. So you've probably seen some of those words associated with the idea of MOOCs. And in terms of history, it's pretty short. The first official MOOC started in 2008. In 2008, there was one MOOC. It was actually offered by a school in Canada. It was an educational MOOC that had about 25 on-ground students and about 2,500 students out in the sphere, so to speak. And then the idea of offering this kind of massive, in terms of numbers, open in terms of access experience, very slowly began to grow. Okay, so it doubled in 1 year. And then they got scared and drew back. But since then, in 2011, 2012, et cetera, it's gone up to projected numbers of about 118 MOOC courses this year, and I think it's probably a lot more than that. Okay? And as far as the major players right now in the MOOC space, there are three. Coursera and Udacity were started by Stanford University professors that had so much fun or luck with a couple of courses they ran primarily in the computer science areas where they had numbers basically in the hundreds of thousands of students, that they decided to move away from the university and open these two organizations that work with schools to offer these courses. Not to be outdone by Stanford, MIT and Harvard came together to make the edX offering. So you can kind of see the number of courses and all that they offer.
And this slide just gives a little more information about those three providers. And so you can see that actually Udacity and Coursera are considered for-profit, whereas edX is considered not-for-profit. You can see they were all launched very close together in 2012, so they're very recent. And you can see the number of courses. Coursera definitely has the highest number of courses at 198. And just some examples of the courses that they include and the number of students served there, up to 1.4 million with Coursera alone. And so some of the major MOOC events, Donna actually already kind of spoke to them. What's really interesting is the fact that it is such a short time frame, and we've gone from 1 or 2 MOOCs to hundreds in this short time frame. In fact, they say that the first, they call it a proto-MOOC, was actually offered in 2007 before this chart. A graduate course at Open Education. There was 50 students, so that doesn't seem huge, but it was in over 8 countries. So that's what made that particular course unique, the fact that it was an international course. So the term MOOC in 2008 was coined and actually led, and the reason I'm saying this is it will become obvious later, by George Siemens, was the Canadian who worked on, he developed the connectivist theory, which MOOCs is based on. And you can see the rest of the major MOOCs, as Donna had already indicated there. And so MOOCs actually started out traditionally in science and mathematics and the technological fields. When I first started looking at MOOCs and I looked at the different course offerings, I said, wow, this doesn't interest me very much. They're very technical. But now that's expanded, and you can see courses in art history and poetry and science fiction and things like that too. And so what's interesting about the MOOCs is, this is a recent article I saw that shows the different types of learners that enroll in a MOOC. Just because there are hundreds of thousands of students every year in MOOCs does not mean they're all active participants. So you can see actually a very small percentage would be considered active participants, and those are the ones that are doing the assignments, engaging in discussions, emailing the instructor, getting together with their classmates. And then you have passive participants that come in and take a quiz or two. They go through all of the lessons and they pay attention to what they're doing. Drop-ins go in and pay attention to very specific parts of the course. So they're interested in this particular lesson. They come in, they drop in, they pay attention that week, then they leave. And then they have observers or lurkers, like I like to call them. They kind of go in, they don't do much, they observe, they don't take the quizzes, they don't discuss, but they're there and they're watching what's happening. And then a large portion of the students are no-shows. They sign up, they don't ever come into the class. And I liked this one, the iMOOC. One of the phenomena that has really emerged from MOOCs is this idea of a MOOC community. So the students, even though they might be distributed, across all over the world, they come together around a common interest, and they develop these either virtual communities where they get together and form study groups or special interest groups, or they do come together physically in meetups. So they might post in their MOOC discussion board, hey, I'm in Phoenix, I'm interested in learning analytics, how about you? And they come together and they actually meet and study and discuss and work together collaboratively inside and outside the MOOC. And this just, what Donna said, the year of the MOOC. This is just one blog post I found. I subscribe to many blogs, and every day there's a MOOC article, MOOC article, MOOC article. I mean, you've seen it. There's just so many.
A whole herd of them.
Right? You can just sort through them, and so. But what I liked about this slide, and those of you back here probably can't see it, but the comment at the bottom says, the first comment that somebody posted on this blog post says, to paraphrase a recent blog post, MOOC, 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 MOOC. And that's basically what you see out there. So that's one of the reasons we're talking now about our experience and also kind of about the hype surrounding MOOCs. So why MOOCs? MOOCs are free. That's one reason why they're so popular. According to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, this shouldn't be news to many of us, Americans owe more than $900 billion in student loans, and so that is now greater than their credit card debt. And Americans are increasingly becoming more and more unsure of the value of what they're spending in tuition. They're saying, am I even going to get a job with this degree? Is it going to pay for itself like it used to? So the MOOCs started out wanting to make history. They wanted, the people that started the MOOCs wanted to connect learners internationally. They wanted to have free, open education, for the masses, and it had a very, noble cause. But, so now, some talk about, now let's see how we can make money from this. And there likely will be some revenue opportunities, including advertising, licensing. Some students may have to start paying. For example, some of the courses are saying, we will give you a credential or a certificate showing that you completed and passed this course, but you have to pay us. So that's a funding model potentially. edX has said it eventually plans to charge a fee to students who want the certificate. Coursera in October 2012 entered into a contract to actually license several of their courses to other universities. So they can offer the MOOCs for credit, but they have to pay Coursera the licensing fee. Other possible sources of revenue include authentic assessments, so a certified, like a proctored test, where the students go in and take the test so they know that they're the ones that have completed the course. Recruitment, screening, companies that want to hire individuals that have this training can recruit and screen using MOOCs. And corporate learning, as well as some advertising and sponsorship in the MOOCs themselves.
And Jennifer brings up a really good point about the financial side of MOOCs because people are trying to figure out how to make them sustainable. But I want to provide a little vocabulary lesson here. When you see the word open in massively open online course, it is not used in the same way that you will hear it in a few minutes when you talk about open educational resources. So the open in massively open online course means that the content is open. In other words, there is no tuition. There's no charge to enter the door of learning, so to speak. However, there may be a charge to exit. There may be a charge to obtain the materials that go with the class. There may be a charge for certification all along the way. So that use of the word open is substantially different. There's no standard in MOOCs. I'll talk a little bit about my course in a minute, which did use completely open educational resources.
So I'm going to give you my experience in two different MOOCs and as a student, and they were very extreme examples, and you may have heard of the first one. I was very excited in January to begin a course on the fundamentals of online education, planning and application. I thought, wow, a MOOC that's not about something really technical. Something I'm interested in and something I can enjoy. It was offered through Coursera in January. It was a 6-week course. And you can see here, actually, that's why the one slide I said that number was very low. Coursera, at the time that I took the screenshot, had 328 courses you could choose from. So you can see that they're really increasing even more than projected. Anyway, I signed up for this course, and within the first week, this was posted. Suspension. Dear students, we want you to have the highest quality learning experience. For this reason, we're shutting this down. You may have seen this. This was the first and only course so far from Coursera that has been shut down, and it happened to be the first one I signed up for. And so I said, what is all this MOOC about? What happened in this course, there were 40,000 students from all over the world. And the instructor wanted to create an engaging learning environment, so she wanted to set up discussion groups with 40,000 students. And it just crashed and burned. First she wanted us to sign up for our own. She had a Google Doc up and said, sign up for your groups. Well, people were erasing names from other people on the Google Doc and putting their name instead because they wanted to be in that group. And so it was a big mess. Then the servers crashed on Google Docs because there were so many people trying to sign up. And so then she said, okay, just pick a group. And so then there was just pages and pages and pages of these threaded discussions. So I'm trying to find a group. She said, find a group that has less than 20 people in it. So I'm scrolling, trying to find. Finally, I just started a thread and said, anyone want to join me? And so, so then we had people join. And it was just the organization wasn't there. And the videos weren't working. There was demand on the servers with the videos and things like that. It just wasn't a very good experience. And within the first week, it was shut down. And you'll note the post, the first post was on the February 2nd, the one that's in the middle. The one above that was on February 3rd, which said, oh, we thank you for your patience. We'll let you know when it opens up again. Haven't heard yet. But that was February 3rd. February 4th, look what pops up. The Chronicle, Inside Higher Ed, all the blogs. Coursera failed, MOOC failed. What are the chances a MOOC on online learning is the one that doesn't work? And so, so the publicity around this. So even though these instructors very often want to sign up for a MOOC to expand themselves and get to be well known internationally and everything, it can also really hurt them. So this poor woman's name was everywhere on the blogs the next day, and it just went crazy.
Epic fail.
Yes, epic fail. But then I signed up, didn't give up. I signed up for another MOOCs on learning analytics and knowledge, and I am a lurker in this course. The content is above my head, but it is very interesting. The reason I mentioned George Siemens before, he's teaching this class, which is one of the reasons I wanted to sign up for it. I said, this is the guy who basically coined the term MOOCs. He's the one that initially offered the first one. Let's see what he does. It is a fantastic experience. It's an 8-week course. You can see it's very well organized just from this little screenshot with the information and everything. Every week he has 2 or 3 guest speakers that you can log on and watch in real time or watch a recorded version of the presentation. Experts in the field of learning analytics. He actually managed to somehow get free licensings, trial versions of different learning analytics software that you could download on your own computer and play with. And some of the lessons teach you how to use the different software. Again, this was what was beyond me, so I thought that's great. But it's very well written, or very well run. And it's just been a great experience. Even though I'm not one of those active participants, I'm not interested in getting credentialed in it, it's been a great experience for me just as an observer. And the discussions that are going on, the people that really know what they're talking about with this are really engaged, and there's some neat stuff going on.
So from the instructor standpoint, a lot of the things that Jennifer talked about are absolutely the case. I'm running a basic arithmetic MOOC right now, delivered through the Canvas network. So it's offered via a Canvas website, not a district. We didn't want to load up the district server anymore. So it's offsite on the Canvas network site. And it opened for enrollment in the fall, and it filled within about 8 weeks with 500 students. And it is just one of the 118 MOOCs or more that will be offered this year. And it was, okay, did I miss something here? All right. Well, we'll pretend like there wasn't a slide there that's gone, because I don't know what it was. So it was a transition. Yes. Okay. So to be clear on what the course was, the course that I'm teaching now, the MOOC that I'm teaching now, is equivalent in terms of the course description to the course that I teach through the Maricopa District to my online students or my face-to-face students. So I based it with the same content. I used the same materials. The materials in my course are all completely open. Students can take the course completely free of charge with no materials cost, no cost for the online software that we use for assessment, and of course no tuition charges. Specifically, we had a 500 limit to start, and I don't know, that seemed like a lot to me, but I'll kind of explain that it really isn't in a minute. Again, the materials are all free. The online assessments were free, no tuition charge, no enrollment or processing through Scottsdale. In fact, no Scottsdale students actually enrolled in the course. So you'll see in a minute kind of where the students came from. It was actually a 13 weeks. I'm a math person, but I have a little hard time with arithmetic sometimes, even though I teach it. Just kidding, of course. And the content is all delivered through the printed materials that I wrote with a colleague and created and delivered through open source, and videos that I created, over 150 videos that go with the course. Those are all also open source. All the assignments are self and computer graded, and any student that does complete and pass the final test will receive basically a statement they can hang on their fridge that says, "Congratulations, you completed all the lessons in the course," with, of course, no credit or any certification from Scottsdale involved in that. So the potential of the MOOCs in terms of, I don't know, it's just kind of exciting to think that I could be the most famous basic arithmetic teacher in the world. Maybe if I go to Africa, I'll be recognized. I don't know. But you can see sort of the snapshot of where the students were coming from, really all over the world, and it's just kind of fascinating to me. I didn't really think that many people would sign up for it, but they did. And okay, there we go. Okay, so I did a little survey of the students before they signed up, and about 100 of them did respond. And you can see the age group for the students. And so primarily, well, I used to think 30 to 39 was middle-aged, but not anymore. And then what I found pretty interesting was the highest level of education they had completed. The most had either graduated from college, or the gray box was those that have graduate degrees. So I was surprised at how many individuals with graduate degrees wanted to review arithmetic. I guess a lot of folks out there really do have trouble with math. And then their motivations varied from wanting to actually learn. I tried to distinguish between learning the content or reviewing the content. So most of them had experienced arithmetic before, thank goodness, and they just wanted to review it. And then this just kind of talks about who they are in terms of, I wanted to know if they were a student in kind of in an educational system, or they were a worker, someone out in the world working. So you can kind of see where that. And the most interesting question that I thought at the beginning was, I gave them a list of topics and I said, are you planning to, because I wanted to know if they were just dropping in or lurking or whatever, are you going to focus on a few of these lessons, or are you going to go through the whole course? And I had about 75 folks say that they were planning back in October to complete the entire course. So that's kind of what I went into it with. And so the reality is that I had the 500 that were out there that in October thought that it would be a great idea to sign up for an arithmetic course. And by the time February rolled around, which is when the course opened, only 100 of those took the orientation quiz, which was required to open everything else in the course. Only 75 created an account in our free assessment system, and only 53 completed lesson 1. So you can see that my graph matches exactly the shape. In fact, I'm going to use this in my algebra class as a classic exponential decay function, because you can see the drop-off from the initial going through. And I think right now we're a little over halfway through, and I've probably got about 30 that might actually finish the course. And so we kind of figured that you might be interested in what we thought were some indicators and suggestions for Maricopa. So we have a couple things we want to talk to you about there.
And one of the things that came to mind right away when we started talking about MOOCs was the idea of the Gartner's hype cycle. I don't know if you've seen this. So with technological innovations, they suggest that most technological disruptive innovations go through this cycle where you start off with some sort of trigger for the innovation. So back in 2008, those folks at Stanford said, let's try this MOOC thing, to the peak of inflated expectations where it's all hype. Down, something happens and it starts to slope back down over time to what they call the trough of disillusionment, which I just love how they call it that. And eventually it starts to kind of level off and increase in momentum again until you get to this plateau of productivity. I would say we are somewhere between the peak of inflated expectations and then the trough of disillusionment. I think if you look at the point where the slope starts to go down, it says negative press begins. I think with that particular course that I took, that might have been one of the first items of negative press that started. I do believe that there are a lot, I see more and more in these articles more skepticism around MOOCs and what we can really do with them. It's a lot of hype right now. I think that we are going to reach a point where people say, well, what exactly are we doing and why? And we'll figure it out. I think that over time it will become, more stable, and we'll hit that plateau productivity where we figure out what to do with these MOOCs and what it means to higher education around the world.
And as far as the promise of MOOCs for community colleges, again, it's super early. There's not many community colleges that are actually participating in the MOOC space. I think that what you see with a lot of the statistics are that most of the folks that take MOOCs they already have a college degree, they already have a graduate degree, they're looking to re-career. They're either more motivated, they have more advanced learning skills. I would be really, really hesitant. If you see the completion numbers for that group, that population, I'd be really hesitant to say that MOOCs are going to take off in the community colleges, especially in the developmental population, because I just feel really strong that our students need that instructor contact and that instructor support. So I think for us, the jury is really still out. It's just because they're everywhere that people kind of want to know more about them and how we might be able to leverage them. But I think in a few minutes you're going to hear a presentation about something called OERs, that of all the things that we can do in the district to save students money, I think that is one of our winners right there. So you're going to hear a lot more about that in just a few minutes. Do you guys get to ask us questions?
Well, if I look at the faces of these presidents, there'd be questions till midnight if we could. I look at our adult basic ed people back there and our developmental programs like you've got at Scottsdale. Mm-hmm. If a student coming into our colleges tests or maybe hasn't even taken the placement test yet, knows that they may be deficient in some areas of math because they haven't had math in a year or 10 years. Do you see this as being, I'm talking about your course basically, as being a resource for them that might prepare them to get back up to speed on math?
It depends on their motivation. And really, they could do something like this, or they could just as easily drop into my online class. Because I run my actual SEC online class in many ways similar to this, except they have to pay for it and they get credit for it. Mm-hmm. So, and of course, they get more interaction from me than they do in the MOOC. The MOOC is really very standalone and is designed to be that way, and the communication that learners engage in is with other learners primarily. I'm in on the discussion boards trying to answer questions and whatnot, but they can certainly rely on each other, as Jennifer mentioned, to create a community. And I wouldn't want to suppose that our entry-level developmental students would be able to necessarily gain what they needed from that part of the experience.
As Donna said, it takes a lot of self-discipline and motivation and a lot of self-learning, really. And in my experience as a student, I'm a very motivated learner, and it's hard to really get myself to log on, and it's an interesting course, but it's you don't have that personal contact.
To that point, if I could, to that point on motivation, and following up on the questions that Dana asked about this, in terms of application to, especially those students need test in English, test into the other courses, reading and math. I think it has application at the high school level, and I really think that you'll find some students that are motivated that have an interest in this. This is the first time I've heard of this, and I think it's an excellent match to reach out to the schools that feed into the community college system. I believe you have an interest there in students. Mm-hmm. Having come from a high school board, I can tell you that often we don't teach. Students find that there's conflicts in schedules, and there's other reasons why they're not able to have access to the kind of learning process that can enable them to better prepare for their junior year, to their, because I noticed you had even up there students taking that were 15 years of age. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so I really disagree with just a little bit. I think there's motivation in high school students, and a lot of times the curriculum isn't suited for them for whatever reasons, time demands, and sometimes an ELL population especially, I think would have excellent application for this. to again, facilitate themselves in English a lot more. It'd be good. But I'm impressed.
Good presentation. I like the Gartner thing is perfect because I took a class too, and I was even worse than you. But I was looking for a specific topic. I went through the syllabus and found out, and so I had to kind of move ahead. That's just what I wanted to get out of it, and I got it. And it was free, and I wasn't looking for another degree or anything. It was a skill I thought I'd like to have, and it worked. But I can see, and you mentioned the ability to do hybrids where a faculty member can use flipping if he or she wants to, and there's all kinds of things that this is going to open the doors to. It's kind of exciting, obviously, but scary in some ways because it's a major disruption and innovation. I think the Chancellor has said many times. But I appreciate your work on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I had another comment on this. You've got MOOC, and then you got online courses. I'm sure you're familiar with it. The other ones where you actually have, I believe there's a standing classroom, and you use Skype or use some other method to teach that classroom, and the instructor can be in Tucson and be teaching the course here. Sure. Are you familiar with those?
Oh, sure. Central Arizona uses a lot of those because their population is so dispersed. Telecourses and things like that, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you find them? Are they useful, or are they catching?
I think for some populations that are not able to drive, there's a distance factor, and they want to have that, face-to-face rapport, sort of TV face with the instructor. I think that can work pretty well.
Good. Thank you. I like the idea. I did hear you at Scottsdale College, and you talked.
Oh, you came to the Tech Talk. Great. You heard the more humorous version.
Yeah.
More cows. Yeah.
You're excited to listen to. I love that. But I like the idea. I've taken some courses for my credentialing for my license, and usually like to do it online. And one was like god awful, and the other one was really exciting. And I actually got something out of it that I could use in my career. But I like the idea that I could take the course in the MOOC. I could take the course, and then if I like the course, I'll pay for it. I could start exploring what's being offered, and if it's going to benefit me. In career or class-wise, I think that's the advantage of the MOOC. To learn if I get along with the teacher, the course makes sense to me, and it's what I need.
So we charge tuition after the class.
Yes, that would be one idea.
Is that your presentation?
That would be it.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Good teaching inspires discussion, and so you had good feedback today. The next is Secretary's report. Mr. Saar? None. Faculty Executive Council, Dr. Kathleen Iodesello.
President Burke, members of the Governing Board, Chancellor Glasper, members of CEC, and honored guests. I would like to take this time on behalf of the Faculty Association to recognize the innovative leadership of Vice Chancellor Jackson. Thank you, Vice Chancellor, and we wish you the best. Now I'm pleased to yield FEC time to 3 innovative and dedicated faculty members, one who's very familiar to you, Donna Gaudet, come back up please, Math Residential Faculty at Scottsdale Community College, James Sousa, Math Residential Faculty at Phoenix College, and Paul Golish, IT and Math Adjunct Faculty at Paradise Valley Community College. They will share with you their work involving open educational resources. Thank you.
Thank you for your time this evening. My name is James Sousa from Phoenix College, and due to time, I'm going to present for all 3 of us. So I'm going to give a report on OER in mathematics in Maricopa, a collaborative effort to save students money and increase access. I'd like to begin with a definition of OER. I'm going to focus on the second part. OER stands for Open Educational Resources. OER are defined as teaching, learning, and research resources that reside in the public domain or have been released under an intellectual property license that permits their free use and repurposing by others. So we were able to create complete math courses using OER materials. And these courses consist of videos, ebooks, online assessment with instant feedback, and as well as supplementary activities and materials. So I'd like to give you just a brief glimpse of what an OER course would look like from the student standpoint. This is just one section of one textbook. You can think of this as one lesson that was presented in the classroom or online. The first link would be to the ebook here on the upper right-hand corner. This would be a PDF file that's traditionally a textbook. Because the PDF file, students can they can download it, they can save it to their thumb drive, they can print it as they need. Every major topic in the course has a supporting video lesson, mostly which are hosted on YouTube, so they're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I've personally recorded over 2,000 of them. And the third component would be the online homework. And so this is also a nice feature because, again, this is all free, but if a student gets to a homework question and they need extra help, a majority of the questions have this video help option that opens up another YouTube video that's very short, 2 to 3 minutes, explains a similar problem, and then they can go ahead and try that problem that they're working on. The system also offers an option for students to collaborate online. They can post this specific question to a discussion forum, and students help students, and of course as an instructor I also monitor the discussion board. And so we really believe that teaching courses with OER offers several benefits. Number one, we believe it removes obstacles to student success. Because the materials are freely available online, students have access to the materials before class begins, on the first day of class, anytime they want them. And we think it's a great complement to on-time registration. If classes begin on the first day, they really don't begin unless everybody has all the course materials. Also, the OER allows continued improvement to the curriculum materials. Because they're not tied to the publishers that have this adoption period, the faculty members are in control of the curriculum, and they can be continually improved every semester rather than worrying about new editions coming out. The materials are flexible enough for a variety of course formats. They can be used in a traditional face-to-face class. They can be used in the flipped classroom, hybrid environment, as well as online. And then OER also promotes collaboration among faculty members throughout the district. It wasn't until I began working with OER that I started communicating with faculty members throughout the district on sharing courses, combining courses. Currently, all of the courses are hosted on a server on the Scottsdale campus, and so we can easily share and copy courses. If I make a video and put it into one question on the system, anyone in the district has access to it. So currently, Scottsdale has 6 OER math courses, Phoenix College has 5, and Paradise Valley has 4, where Scottsdale is pretty much leading the way with over 42 math faculty teaching their courses using OER. And I also want to mention that the current district-wide Math DevEd module project will also have an OER option. So now I want to share with you a couple things about what students are saying about these types of courses. This first survey was conducted on Phoenix College. It was 2 sections that I taught of introductory algebra from fall 12. And the first question I asked was, how important is it to you that instructors consider cost when selecting course materials? And you can see 76% of the students ranked out of 5, where 5 being very important. Next, how would you rate the quality of the components used in the OER courses? And keep in mind, this was one section of a face-to-face class and one online. So if we focus on the bottom here, the overall course materials, 48 out of 49 ranked the course materials 4 or 5, again, 5 being the highest. And the video component, as well as the online homework, actually ranked even higher. There's some mix here with the in-class instruction because one of the classes was online, so there wasn't any in-class instruction. And then the textbook, though, I'm finding that more students prefer the video interactive component rather than the traditional textbook in this format. A larger survey from Scottsdale, 910 students, 78.1% felt that the open materials did support adequately the work they were doing outside of the class. And the second question, whether they would recommend the materials to classmates, 76.2% would recommend the open materials to their classmates. So I would like to say that we're focusing on math, OER here, but there are other departments using OER throughout the district. For example, at PV, you can see there are geography faculty, physics faculty, librarians, psychology as well. But I can personally say that this is the second semester where I've taught all my classes using OER, and I'm all in because I think that when we can start class on day one and everybody has all the materials they need, an ebook, online homework, video support, it's an amazing thing. And just every time I see a student, I think of $100, $100, $100 that I'm saving them because they're not buying the textbook. The only thing they have to buy is there may be some printing costs if they do want to have a print copy of the text, but that's optional.
Yeah.
So I was going to go ahead and stop there. And I do want to mention there is a proposal being worked on for a district implementation of more adoption of OER.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Mr. Burke, if I could, it's me over here. If I can take the opportunity to, first of all, say thank you to our faculty because they have been innovators in this area from day one, and they've done a lot of great work in the system. So I want to say thank you for your good work, but also mention that two things. One is, as James alluded to, we have the developmental ed math reform going on, and some component of that would be OER, and we should be seeing some of that work in place coming up in a couple of months. And the second thing, as you mentioned, is that we're looking at forming a district-wide group to explore how we can implement OER beyond the innovators like them. And so we will be supporting that through my division coming forward.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to publicly thank them because they've done really good work.
Thank you. Comments from the board?
Awesome.
And just looking at our issues with the basic, I know I don't want to pick on you guys because you're here today, but our basic adult education programs without the funding, is this something that you can see being implemented into that aspect of our offerings?
Mr. Burke, Mr. Saar, it's certainly something we could explore in terms of having that available, but it would depend on whether or not the state would continue to fund it or not. If it decided not to, then we would have to look at a lot of different options to reconfigure not only the delivery but the size of the program.
Mr. Miranda mentioned that the legislature gets in the way of good things once in a while.
We're going to change that.
Good. I'll be right there with you. And I'm not just saying developmental ed but in our GED programs, but those ones that we really struggle with, students that don't have all the time in the world, that can't always meet a rigorous schedule of classes when they have to be, when they don't. I mean, the online helps a great deal, but that's a huge group of population out there that's in that position in Arizona. I just get excited every time I think about it.
Thank you. I'd also like to mention that Rio Salado College actually has a huge open educational resource webpage, and we have a number of resources that are available to our students.
Where do you do the videoing?
In my house.
Quiet room.
In the quiet room, yeah. And we didn't put the slide up here with savings, but just so you get an idea of the impact, in Scottsdale alone, in 6 courses in the fall, we saved our students $184,000.
Wow, awesome.
And that's really just in textbooks? I mean,
Yeah.
do you see the ability to handle more students at a time under these circumstances or not?
No, I mean, that's not, so these materials are not about changing pedagogy, they're not even necessarily about improving student success directly, other than that the hope is that if you keep more students, if they didn't have to spend $180 for a textbook the first 2 weeks and get behind because they couldn't get it, if they stay there, then they have a chance to finish the next time. That's kind of the goal.
The videoing, I know was an issue. I've talked to MCC and Renee. Is the future of that resource in our district going to change from producing half-hour programs to doing thousands of these videos? In a building that doesn't exist today, possibly with equipment that we don't have today, but yet the need for
quality video production, I think is just going to expand dramatically.
We got MCC right here, MCTV. Right? We'll have to give them a good studio and give them a location for Rocket News.
I think it can also help with placement if students are able to access the materials before they talk again. They can go in there and watch the videos or try some homework by waiting that this is not the course needs. They're too easy or too difficult, then they can push themselves to be more successful as well.
And then they can use it after the course is over too. If there's a gap between courses and you go back and review, we don't have to shut it off when they're done with the course. They just have access forever.
Awesome.
See, it happened again. You started discussion.
Mr. Burke, members of the board, the one comment I will make here is that this is consistent with the presentation we saw from Mesa a month or so ago. We have these individual pockets of excellence, of new changes. Our big challenge will be scaling this and finding an opportunity and resources for faculty to build the courses, to find the time, while at the same time moving other students through the system while we build an infrastructure for change. But this is definitely one of the directions that we're expecting to roll out in the next couple of months, as Dr. Marinick mentioned.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Employee group reports, Ms. Licia Han, Adjunct Faculty Association.
Thank you, President Burke, governing board members, the Chancellor, CEC members, and district executive staff. Let me close that slide because I'm not giving that. I am giving you a different one. Over here. Slideshow. In January, the Adjunct Faculty Employee Group reported that we would be hosting regional workshops around the district to prepare adjunct faculty to effectively participate in the hiring processes. The most recent workshop was March 22nd, hosted by Phoenix College. And this workbook is available online. Mouse. Here it is. Each of you have a copy of that. This workbook provides links to Maricopa Community College District hiring services. It didn't open. Well, so I won't show it online. Let's see if it does. Okay. Well, you have a copy of that PDF, but it's available online and it hyperlinks to resumes that were provided from adjunct faculty that are now full-time residential faculty, their cover letters, as well as job postings, so that adjunct faculty can be prepared for the hiring processes. The purpose of today's workshop presentation, however, is to discuss, this is the night of the survey, I have one more report on surveys, the Adjunct Faculty 2013 survey. This was rolled out in 4 individualized solicitations from March 4th through the 24th, and we asked questions related to professional development, employment, benefits, and the adjunct faculty employee group. We had 1,778 respondents. We have 6,705 adjunct faculty, 1,320 from January 2012 to February 2013, and then from January 2012 to February 2013, 1,305 were removed. They were not teaching with us anymore. So our overall response rate was 29.8%. You can see here the list of our colleges, the respondents. Rio was the highest. We are still receiving responses from this, so what we're thinking we'll do is roll out another survey to see if we can increase these numbers just a little bit. These surveys are important because they provide important professional development results. So some of the survey results tell us when to offer courses and what to offer. There wasn't a lot new here. Our adjunct faculty prefer to have workshops on Saturday. They prefer to have workshops in the evening during the week from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. MCLI's reported this. We've reported this. That's not really new. We did expand on what to offer, and what we found is that adjunct faculty are interested in instructional design, active learning strategies, and student engagement. So that was new. The other thing that we're going to do new this year is we're going to provide college-specific results so that each college, the CTL, can go onto the website and find out what specific adjuncts at their campus want to learn in terms of workshops. We also asked professional educator recognition results, so we wanted to find out what do adjunct faculty feel it means to be recognized as a professional educator. And the top results was permanent position consideration, commensurate with pay, and inclusion in committees. So we found out that information. We also wanted to find out what adjunct faculty felt their perceptions were with professional relationships on their campus. And we found that students, relationships with students, fellow adjunct, and residential faculty, as well as department chairs, rated fairly positively in this. So that was nice. So as I stated, the district-wide as well as college-specific results will be made available. And these results will be useful in planning professional development training. However, we did not do this alone. I want to take a minute and thank Neil Newman, who provided job postings when we didn't have them available. I want to thank the faculty and staff of Phoenix College and Glendale Community College, the AFA board, Polly, Roxanne, and Phil Jalowick, the past president, who helped make all of this possible. We don't do this alone. So what surprised me is when we sent out the survey, at least 5 of former adjunct faculty are now current residential faculty, and I contacted them and asked them if they would be willing to help with this workshop in some form. And George Gregg, who's now chemistry faculty, came and gave us a workshop. 3 of the former adjunct faculty provided their resumes as well as their cover letters, so it was a really positive turnout. We had 44 people sign up, and about 25 show up the day of the workshop, so I was really pleased. The 2 top reasons that adjunct faculty don't go to workshop, part of it was location. So I'm curious if because it was Phoenix College. Also, we would have had the workshop on a Saturday. That's a prime day. However, this workshop was designed to be interactive. So each of these staff and faculty answered questions, and it's easier to do that on a Friday. So if Saturday is the first best day, the second best day was a Friday. So I think that we had a pretty good turnout. So with that, I conclude my presentation, and if there are any questions.
Thank you. Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Mr. Kevin Velasquez, United Tribal Employees Council.
Good evening. I'll promise to keep this short. Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Glasper, CEC, and guests, my name is Kevin Velasquez, and tonight on behalf of the United Tribal Employee Council, Dr. Sherry Olson of Southbound Community College, and the Planning Committee for the American Indian Convocation, I wanted to invite everyone to the 13th Annual American Indian Convocation at South Mountain Community College. This year, we will celebrate this event on Thursday evening, May 9th. Sign-in will begin at 6 p.m. and the program should get underway approximately 6:30. We welcome all members of the student body and administration, faculty, staff, and their families from across the district to this cultural celebration. We will be in contact by email announcement or a special invitation in the coming weeks that will highlight all the specific details. So we look forward to seeing you Thursday evening, May 9th, at South Mountain Community College. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The ceremony last year was awesome. You did a really good job, and it was really a moving ceremony, so I look forward to being there again.
Same here.
Next, with Vice Chancellor reports, we have Mary O'Connor from the Maricopa Foundation.
Thank you. Mr. Burke, members of the board, on behalf of our foundation board chair, Tony Hampton, and Dr. Healthcott, it's my pleasure to formally invite you to be our guest at the 8th Annual Heroes of Education Awards dinner. This year we're honoring Edmundo Hidalgo, who is the president and CEO of Chicanos por la Causa and immediate past board chair of the Maricopa Community Colleges Foundation. This year's dinner will be held on Wednesday, April 25th at the Sheraton Phoenix downtown, a new venue for us. The evening will begin with a VIP reception at 5:30, followed by dinner at 7. We're excited to be adding a new element to this year's program and one that we hope will establish a new tradition. At the VIP reception and then briefly during the dinner, we'll be recognizing 10 college heroes, one individual, organization, or company selected by each college for the work that they do to support the work of that college. We've had a great initial class of college heroes and a wonderful recognition planned for them. It's our 8th year for the Heroes Dinner, and we're well on our way to passing the $2 million mark for support of scholarships for students. As always, it will be a great night, and we hope you can all join us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's exciting that you're honoring Edmundo as far as a community leader and all he's done for the community, not only for the college, and, in the H program, but also all the work he's done for the community. So I think it's really exciting, going to be an exciting event. Thank you.
I don't have any notification of college reports, so we'll go to external community. AADGB report. The AADGB will meet on Thursday at 10 o'clock here at the district office, and we will be discussing a program in September for board members throughout the state. Next is the ASBA report. Mr. Saar.
None.
Yeah.
I'd like to comment on the, I've been going to the Arizona School Board Association meetings, and with the people meeting there, they're contacting me, and we're supporting each other and either working with the colleges or working on their schools, and so I really encourage the board members to attend those events. And I also want to make one more comment on Pamela Davenport's comments about reports of some people being mean to each other. And I think from a learn from the Conference on League for Innovation, I went to attend a workshop that was recommended actually by Maria Harper Marinick on Sandy Schubert, or Sanford Schubert, and he wrote a book on the crucible of work, and he talked about that, being who you are. I mean, if you say you care about people and work well with others, and then you don't, you need to be more reflective. And I hope everybody looks at themselves and treat others with respect. And sometimes we can't mandate that, we can't enforce it, but we need to talk about it, encourage it. And when people are just being, disrespectful, mean to each other, we need to change that and promote working with each other in a more respectful way.
Thank you. The next item is the legislative update. Mr. Ryan DeMena.
President Burke, members of the board, Chancellor Glasper, members of CEC, and all others present, I'm here this evening to provide you with a brief legislative update. Today marks the 72nd day of the 51st legislature, first regular session. There have been 1,145 pieces of legislation and 70 memorials and resolutions introduced this session. To date, 10 bills have been signed by Governor Brewer. The deadline to hear bills in standing committees has passed. By way of a reminder, the 2013 legislative agenda, developed and adopted by the Arizona Community College President's Council, consists of 3 primary components. The first is development of a statewide job training infrastructure that better leverages the community college's existing job training resources. The second component is a goal to restore capital funding to require industry standard equipment for job training. And the third is support for the Arizona Department of Education's request to restore the state match for adult basic education funding. We have made excellent progress with regard to job training and workforce development so far this session. After a number of meetings with Representative Jeff Doyle, chairman of the House Committee on Higher Education and Workforce Development, and other key stakeholders, the Arizona Commerce Authority has agreed to review and redraft the rules that govern the authority's job training program. In last week's Higher Education and Workforce Development Committee meeting, Sandra Watson, director of the Arizona Commerce Authority, provided an update to committee members and made it clear in her remarks that the authority is exploring options to better utilize Arizona's community colleges for job training. The capital funding request is also making some positive progress. House Bill 2265, which replaces capital outlay funding with funding for STEM and workforce programs, is the placeholder for this budget request and passed out of the Senate Committee on Appropriations earlier today with unanimous support. Lawmakers and the governor are still working to reconcile revenue estimates as a starting point for the fiscal year 2014 budget, and as a result, we have not yet determined the level of support for adult basic education funding. Regardless, the Maricopa legislative team will continue working closely with the Arizona Department of Education to secure state funding for this program. We will be sure to provide you with additional updates as the legislative session progresses, and with that, I'm happy to stand for any questions you may have.
Questions from board members?
I just have a comment, President Burke. Ryan, and I know we're still in this session and we still got a lot of work to do, or you have a lot of work to do, actually.
Yes, sir.
But we're here to support you. But I think some of the comments I made earlier, and I hope it, that you'll pursue, at least inquire about the possibilities of merging the marketing that we do, that's geared for attracting students to attend our community colleges, to do somehow to utilize that in conjunction with the efforts that you have at the legislative, your responsibilities at the legislature. And I say that because most of the legislators that went to school, most of them at some point went to a community college. But, they went at a time where the changes that have been implemented for the last 5 years, 10 years here at the community college, they haven't seen those. And I think one of the jobs we have to do, or the district has to do through you, is to lobby them in terms of educating them about the tremendous changes that have occurred. And I think marketing is a very integral part of trying to get that message across to legislators, because they live in that, ivory tower, and it's very difficult to penetrate that. So, I'd encourage you at some point to discuss with the district administration and with the chancellor, of course, to see what we can do to help your efforts out there. Because one person alone can't do it without the assistance in exposing what the community colleges are doing. So I look forward to doing that.
Well, President Burke, Mr. Miranda, if I may, I agree, and I'd echo your remarks from earlier as well about getting folks to get involved. I think that you, probably more so than anyone on this board, understands that when legislators hear from their constituents, when they hear from the real people, that has a resounding effect. They're used to seeing my face day in and day out. But when they hear from real folks at the podium via email, phone calls, that has a real substantive effect.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thanks.
And we have meeting dates in April, beginning April 2nd. It's a capital planning retreat, at which time we will be discussing possibilities of a bond issue in coming years. A second meeting on April 9, a governing board work session, which will be a discussion of policy. And then on April 23rd, our next regular board meeting. And with the board's approval, I think that we will adjourn.